Investigative journalist and radio host David Whitehead travels to the Loreto Chapel in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
I'm here to investigate a really mysterious structure, the famous Loreto staircase. We don't know who built it, we don't understand the physics behind it, and we don't even have a good indication as to what it's made of. Oh, wow. This place is beautiful.
Meeting with David is chapel curator Richard Lindsley.
So this is it?
Absolutely. A miraculous staircase.
I've heard so much about it. I've read so many theories about it, and it's amazing to actually be here to see it.
In 1873, the Sisters of Loreto commissioned the construction of the chapel for their new girls' school. Officially consecrated 5 years later, the Loreto Chapel is a triumph of Gothic revival design. With its high spires, soaring buttresses, and enormous stained glass windows. But as construction was nearing completion, the project's architect suddenly died before he could build what was considered the most ambitious part of the job, the staircase leading up to the choir loft.
The mystery of the staircase actually begins with this mysterious carpenter. The sisters asked the local carpenters to build one, but they failed. They didn't know how to do it. The sisters, they decided to turn to prayer and said a 9-day novena, asking St. Joseph, the patron of carpenters, to help them with their problem. At the last day of their prayer, it said that a knock came at these doors. This elderly man was standing there with a donkey by his side, and he told the sister that he had come to build their staircase. Was it St. Joseph, like the sisters believed? Some pious people think it was an angel, but he was very reclusive and insisted upon working inside this chapel by himself, never allowing anyone to see him work on the staircase.
Throughout the Christian and Catholic world, we have a tremendous amount of these stories of miraculous help from saints. And this is a part of the Catholic belief system. You can pray to saints, and they're supposed to try to help. So it's a built-in part of the package, this idea of an intercessory, closer to people and yet closer to God.
After 3 months, the sisters came into the chapel and the man was gone. And when they could not find him to even pay him for his labor, they went to the only lumberyard in town and asked them how much they owed for the materials. And the lumberyard told the sisters that the man never got any materials from them at all.
So what material is this staircase made of?
I gave a coarse sample of the wood from the inner stringer to a US naval scientist, and he determined right away that it was a form of Picea spruce.
Is this form of spruce local to Santa Fe?
The wood in this staircase did not match up with any other Picea spruce known to science. This wood does not match up with any other quite like it on Earth.
The staircase at Loreto Chapel is amazing. It's a double spiral system. There's no glue, there's no nails, there's no screws. It's put together in a way that how it's just sitting on itself is holding it together.
So Richard, an interesting thing about this design is the double helix. The double helix, or the double spiral, is that it's an incredibly unique design.
Well, we had a world-renowned physicist come visit us, and he was convinced that the double helix design was integral to its inner strength.
Mind if I go up?
Please be my guest. This is a very special privilege.
I definitely feel very privileged. I've waited for this moment for so long. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's a unique feeling just right on that first step. I almost feel like a vibration. Feeling like I'm floating, like there's nothing underneath my feet. It's truly a remarkable feeling. Now, how many stairs have we got here?
There are 33 steps to the staircase, which reminded the Sisters of our Lord because he lived 33 years.
Well, I find it very interesting that here we are in this chapel in Santa Fe, and we're seeing the motif of the sacred number 33. And this number is important to the Templars.
33 steps? One of the most secret numbers to the fraternal order of builders known as Freemasons, who in turn are thought to be the spiritual descendants of the Knights Templar. Could this number of steps really provide an important clue as to who built the stairway and how?
So the number 33 is a sacred number in Templarism. So they would have encoded that number, whether it be in staircases or artwork in the stained glass windows, or even the mathematical dimensions of some of these structures. To the Templars, they don't just see a staircase or a stained glass window or a layout of a church design. They see an esoteric number, the number of a master builder, the manifestation of the divine on earth, and it's very deeply rooted in the entire Templar tradition.
I think the quality of construction and detailing show that somebody who did it was highly skilled, and they must have learned that. So the person who built that staircase apprenticed with somebody. They learned some things, they applied those things later in Santa Fe. So there's no doubt they could have been working with a mason, but they were way too skilled to have been the first time they did something like that.
Salford, England, October 2020. Experts working in the Acoustics Research Center at the University of Salford published the results of a groundbreaking study on one of the most iconic ancient monuments in the world, Stonehenge. In their experiment, the scientists constructed a scale model 1/12 the actual size of Stonehenge, used speakers to shoot sound waves throughout the model, and measured how sounds reverberated through the miniature structure. Their conclusion? The massive blocks of Stonehenge were designed to amplify sound.
Everybody knows about Stonehenge. This is the most famous megalithic monument anywhere in the world. But who created this? Why would they have done it? What research is now beginning to suggest is that one of the possibilities is to enhance the generation of sound used in ritual.
Believed to be constructed in 3000 BC, Stonehenge has stood on the plains of Wiltshire, England for at least 5,000 years. With an outer ring of 30 4-ton stones surrounding 5 huge arches whose massive blocks weigh 25 tons each, Stonehenge's construction defies explanation. Such a project could not have been achieved haphazardly.
We know that some of the stones were actually imported from South Wales, which was something like 120 miles away. A bit tricky when you don't have flatbed trucks or decent roads.
Some of the stones at Stonehenge weigh between 50 and 70 tons. So how could you have moved them from Wales to construct Stonehenge? These are answers that have not been properly dealt with.
For part of the journey, it's been worked out that they would have floated them on boats. But then there would be quite a bit of land to drag them across, and presumably they used greased rollers and an awful lot of manpower. But again, we don't know.
Once people have actually got the stones to the site at Stonehenge, the next major problem is how do you lift them up in the air? And the only way I can think that you would do that is that you would make a ramp and you would drag them up the ramp and then tip them off the end. That's a massive undertaking. So we're talking about thousands of people involved creating Stonehenge, and these people are working 150 miles apart. Just imagine how complex those logistics are. We may never really know how they did it.
High in the mountains of northern Ethiopia, a mile and a half above sea level, lies the city of Lalibela. Each year, tens of thousands of worshippers make the arduous journey here, despite its remote location, to visit 11 of the strangest holy places on earth.
Well, Lalibela is one of Africa's most mysterious sites. It's a complex of 11 monolithic churches that are hewn right out of the bedrock. Most churches are built on the surface and they're built from the bottom up. Whereas in Lalibela, they're built from the top down. It's the only place on the earth that has cathedrals that are built underground as opposed to being built on the surface.
What makes the Lalibela churches so unique is not just their building construction, which is unlike anything else in the world, but also the otherworldly feel of the complexes where these different monuments can be found. Entering into the complex of churches was almost like entering another realm. Almost as if those who constructed Lalibela had a ritual function, and that was to bring themselves closer to God.
It's an incredible piece of engineering, this idea that you build 11 churches below ground. But it creates its own unique problems. How do people get down there? How did they move all of the rock out, and where did it go? Those are the things that start running through my mind.
Dating back to the 12th century AD, each of Lalibela's 11 churches was painstakingly carved by hand, and from the outside, like enormous sculptures. The complex also includes an extensive system of tunnels and catacombs, all carved out of solid bedrock. But why? Why build a magnificent series of structures in the toughest way possible?
The builder of Lalibela was a king by this very name, Lalibela. And it is said that in the 12th century, he was living in Jerusalem and decided to come back into Ethiopia and create these monolithic churches. And it's very clear that Lalibela, in the design of these different churches, was trying to replicate Jerusalem. Indeed, he was trying to create a new Jerusalem. So by entering into this complex, it's almost like you were entering into Jerusalem itself, which was considered to be the most holy shrine in the world.
It is described that Lalibela had a dream, and in the dream he was instructed by God to go back and make a copy of Jerusalem at the site. And in order to fulfill God's request, King Lalibela and others who were involved worked night and day for 20 years.
So in their minds, right at the beginning, they had a three-dimensional structure in mind. Because when they started, it was just a big piece of rock. And how did they know that if they were going to go 150 feet down into the ground, that everything was okay? Because the worst possible thing would be that you'd almost finished, and then you found that there was a massive problem at the bottom.
11 underground churches, some over 100 feet deep, each carved from a single block of stone in only 20 years' time. Archaeologists date the churches back nearly 1,000 years. But even with today's modern technology, such an incredible architectural feat would be considered impossible. So how was it accomplished?
If we go and build a big structure today, a skyscraper, we have blueprints, we have engineering design pathways, and we have a construction plan. It tells us how we will do every step of the way, where every screw, nut, bolt, weld, poured concrete goes. None of that exists for these large ancient structures So we really got to think outside the box and try to find how they were done, why they were done, and who built them.
A very curious thing at Lalibela is that there are some very unique carvings there. It's very interesting symbols that are carved into these churches. Do they mean something if you put them together?
In the church of St. Mary at Lalibela, there is the Star of David. And this, along with a number of other mementos and designs, are extremely indicative of the presence of the Knights Templar. This has suggested to many that they may well have been present during the construction of the churches at Lalibela.
Now, the Knights Templar were a very interesting religious order that became very powerful during the Middle Ages. But what people don't often realize is they were very interested in building, in geometry, in numerology. And so they were once very practical and pragmatic, but on the other hand, also very spiritual and mystic.
The Knights Templar had a great amount of knowledge in masonry and architecture and building structures. Now, it's debated as to whether or not the Knights Templar would have been in Ethiopia at this time. But there's some interesting evidence that an Armenian geographer at the time documented seeing men with red and white regalia, blonde or reddish hair, long hair, which could indicate that he's talking about Templars. So it could be that the Templars themselves were the ones that built Lalibela, or that they helped King Lalibela build the site.